1. The morning began like any other broadcast of Good Morning America. Bright studio lights, polite smiles from the hosts, and an excited crowd outside the glass eager to see one of the most popular country stars of today in person. Morgan Wallen walked into the studio in his signature denim jacket, a slight frown on his face but still carrying his usual air of charisma and confidence. Everything was going according to plan until the very first question from the host touched on his recent controversies. Her words sounded particularly sharp, as if they had been crafted not to inform, but to provoke. Tension instantly filled the room, the audience outside stopped smiling, and the camera operators exchanged glances, sensing that things were about to spiral out of control. Morgan slowly set the microphone on his lap, locked eyes with the host, and said in a quiet but icy voice, "If this is all we're here to talk about, then I shouldn't have come at all." The host tried to recover with a nervous laugh, insisting it was just a question and part of the interview, but Morgan's expression didn't soften. The crew behind the cameras shifted uncomfortably, sensing that the conversation was teetering on the edge. "You invited me here to talk about my new album, my music, my fans," Morgan continued, his voice rising just enough to silence the room. "Instead, you're digging for headlines." His words hit the air like a slap, and for a split second, the studio went completely still. The producers gestured frantically to change the topic, but the damage had already been done. Morgan's jaw was set, his hands gripping the arms of his chair as if bracing himself for a storm. The live audience watching from home could feel the tension crackling through their screens. The interviewer tried to steer the conversation back to safer territory, mentioning his latest single and the tour dates, but Morgan barely glanced up. "No, we're not gonna pretend that didn't just happen," he said sharply, leaning forward. "You want controversy? Go make it with someone else." His voice carried a mix of controlled anger and raw disappointment, as though he'd expected better from the show. The tension was thick enough to make the stage lights feel hotter, and even the normally chatty crew members avoided eye contact. A murmur rippled through the audience, unsure whether to clap, stay silent, or simply watch the drama unfold. Morgan's hand drifted toward his mic pack, and that small motion alone sent the producers into a quiet panic. They knew exactly what it meant without another word. Morgan unclipped his mic and set it down on the couch cushion beside him with deliberate care, the kind of calm that spoke louder than shouting ever could. The hosts exchanged uneasy glances, half rising from their seats as if to stop him, but his mind was clearly made up. "I don't owe you this," he muttered, barely audible to the cameras, and stood up. The audience's gasps filled the studio as he straightened his jacket and strode toward the edge of the set. One of the producers rushed forward, whispering urgently, but Morgan didn't even slow his pace. The camera tried to follow him, but the director quickly cut to a wide shot, scrambling to keep the scene from spiraling into live television chaos. The atmosphere shifted from awkward to electric, and everyone in the room knew they were witnessing a moment that would dominate headlines by morning. As Morgan reached the studio doors, the muffled noise of the set faded behind him, replaced by the heavy silence of the hallway. Crew members and assistants stood frozen, unsure whether to intervene or let him go. One camera operator, sensing the magnitude of the moment, followed at a distance, catching the way his boots echoed against the polished floor. Without looking back, Morgan pushed through the final door, the morning sunlight spilling over him like a spotlight. Outside, a few fans waiting for autographs stared in confusion as he passed by without a word, heading straight for a black SUV idling at the curb. Within seconds, the vehicle pulled away, leaving behind a trail of speculation, unanswered questions, and the lingering shock of a live walk-off that would soon be replayed across every news channel and social feed in the country. Back inside the studio, the atmosphere was tense and awkward as the hosts tried to recover the broadcast with forced smiles and quick transitions. Off-camera, producers were frantically discussing how to handle the fallout, while PR teams began drafting statements. Social media was already buzzing, with clips of the clash going viral within minutes, sparking debates among fans and critics alike. Some defended Morgan's reaction, calling it a stand against provocation, while others criticized him for walking out mid-interview. Behind the scenes, sources whispered that this confrontation had been brewing for weeks, fueled by disagreements over personal questions and creative control. The incident had shifted from a morning TV hiccup to a full-blown media storm, one that neither Morgan nor the show could escape from in the days to come. By the afternoon, major entertainment outlets had picked up the story, each adding their own spin to what had unfolded. Headlines blared with phrases like, "Morgan Wallen storms out on live TV," and "Tense moments on Good Morning America." Fans flooded comment sections, dissecting every second of the video, from his facial expressions to the tone of his voice. Some claimed they saw him mutter something under his breath as he stood up, while others argued the hosts had crossed a line with their questions. In Nashville, industry insiders speculated on how this might impact his upcoming tour and album release, with some promoters quietly concerned about the optics. Meanwhile, Morgan's team remained silent, fueling even more curiosity about what he would say when he finally broke his silence. Late that evening, Morgan finally addressed the incident through a short post on his social media. Without mentioning the show or its hosts by name, he wrote that he would always stand by my truth, and refused to engage in conversations that, in his words, twist a man's character for clicks. The post immediately ignited another wave of discussion, with supporters praising his stance and critics calling it evasive. Entertainment analysts debated whether his statement was a strategic move to keep the controversy alive or an attempt to shut it down without offering specifics. Meanwhile, the clip from the morning broadcast continued to trend, now being remixed into memes and reaction videos across TikTok and Instagram. Even those who didn't usually follow country music found themselves caught up in the drama, as the walk-off moment became the most talked-about TV exchange of the week. By the next morning, the controversy had spilled far beyond the entertainment world, with major news outlets picking up the story and political commentators weighing in on what they framed as a freedom of speech debate. Some conservative voices applauded Morgan for walking away rather than allowing himself to be ambushed on live television, while others argued that leaving the set only fueled speculation about his conduct. Advertisers linked to the show began receiving both backlash and praise, depending on their perceived stance. Behind the scenes, producers reportedly reached out to Morgan's team to smooth things over, but sources claimed he refused any further appearances on the network. As hashtags like #MorganWalks and #GMacklash trended for a second straight day, it became clear that this was no longer just a morning show spat. It had turned into a full-blown cultural flashpoint. In the days that followed, Morgan's team crafted a carefully worded statement, posted across all his social media platforms, framing the incident as a stand for authenticity and self-respect. He explained that he was ready for an honest conversation, but not for what he described as a calculated public takedown disguised as an interview. The post quickly racked up millions of likes and tens of thousands of comments, with fans rallying behind him and sharing their own frustrations about media bias. However, critics accused him of playing the victim and avoiding accountability for past controversies. Major country music radio stations continued to spin his latest hits, seemingly unaffected by the drama, but industry insiders whispered about strained relationships between Morgan and several television networks. For better or worse, his walk-off had cemented his image, to some as a principled artist unwilling to be disrespected, and to others as a volatile figure who couldn't handle tough questions. Over at Good Morning America, producers moved quickly to control the narrative. The very next day, the show aired a shortened, heavily edited version of the interview, ending just before Morgan's abrupt exit. The hosts addressed the incident briefly, describing it as an unfortunate misunderstanding, and assuring viewers that they had approached the conversation with respect and fairness. Behind the scenes, however, sources claimed there was frustration and disappointment among the staff, with some feeling that Morgan had overreacted, while others admitted that certain questions were deliberately tough to create a television moment. Media analysts noted that the incident gave GMA a ratings spike, with clips of Morgan storming out trending across multiple platforms. While the morning show's official stance was neutral, the subtle tension between them and Morgan was now an open secret in the entertainment world. As the dust settled, Morgan's camp saw an unexpected silver lining. Within hours of the GMA incident going viral, his streaming numbers spiked, and ticket sales for his upcoming tour saw a noticeable surge. Publicists began framing the walk-off as proof of his authenticity, emphasizing that he refuses to be cornered or disrespected. Fans flooded his social media with messages of support, praising him for standing his ground, and not letting mainstream TV push him around. Meanwhile, critics accused him of using outrage as a marketing tool, suggesting that the clash was a calculated move to generate buzz ahead of his album release. Morgan himself remained tight-lipped, posting only a single line on Instagram, "I said what I said." The ambiguity kept people talking, and in the world of celebrity publicity, that's often more valuable than an explanation. Behind the scenes, however, industry insiders weren't all clapping for Morgan's defiance. Executives at the network quietly expressed frustration, noting that the walk-off disrupted the live broadcast and forced producers to scramble for filler content. A few festival organizers reportedly began reconsidering his headlining slots, wary of potential unpredictability during live events. Some peers in the country music scene publicly defended him, while others hinted in interviews that professionalism should come first, no matter the provocation. Rumors swirled that certain talk shows might now hesitate to book him, fearing similar confrontations. In Nashville, a veteran radio host summed it up: "This could make him a legend, or it could make him a liability. Depends on what he does next." That uncertainty created a strange tension. Morgan's next move would either cement his rebellious image or cost him key opportunities.